You're cleaning out the garage or maybe checking under the porch roof and you spot it. A hard, dried lump of mud stuck to the wall, shaped almost like a cluster of little pipes or tubes fused together. It wasn't there a few weeks ago. Now it looks permanent, almost like it grew straight out of the wall itself. Your first instinct is to grab a stick or a broom handle and just knock the whole thing down before whatever built it comes back. Stick around, because what's actually sealed inside that little mud structure is stranger and honestly more useful to you than almost anything else built by an insect in your backyard. This is a mud dauber nest, and depending on where you live, you've probably seen one without even knowing what it was. Some people call them dirt daubers, others just call them mud wasps. And because of that word wasp, most people assume the worst. A hidden colony, an angry swarm, something ready to explode the second you touch it. That assumption is almost completely wrong, and understanding why is going to change how you look at every one of these you ever find again. Mud daubers aren't some rare isolated species either. They're found across the United States and in many other parts of the world, wherever there's mud, water, and a healthy population of spiders to hunt. The adult wasp itself is long and slender, usually about an inch long, with a body that looks almost pinched in the middle. A thin, thread-like waist connecting the front half of its body to the back. Depending on the species, you'll see them in solid black with bright yellow markings on the legs and body. Or in the case of the blue mud dauber, an iridescent metallic blue that catches the light almost like a beetle's shell. That coloring is actually part of the confusion. Black and yellow mud daubers in particular are often mistaken for yellow jackets or paper wasps at a glance, which only adds to people's instinct to destroy the nest on sight. But the body shape gives them away once you know what to look for. That long, narrow waist is a dead giveaway. Social wasps like yellow jackets and hornets don't have it. Mud daubers do. Here's the first thing that surprises people. There's no colony inside that nest. No queen, no workers, no hive mentality at all. Mud daubers are solitary wasps, which means every single nest you find was built entirely by one female, working completely alone from start to finish. There's no group defending it, no swarm waiting to boil out if you get too close. It's closer to a single mother's project than a fortress. She starts by finding a source of mud, usually near a puddle or a damp patch of soil after rain, and rolls it into a small ball using her mandibles. Then she carries that ball back to a sheltered spot, somewhere dry and protected, under an eave, inside a garage, along a wall, and starts building. Tube by tube, layer by layer, she constructs a series of small chambers, each one meant to hold something very specific. And this is where the story stops being about architecture and starts being about hunting. Every one of those tiny mud chambers is meant to become a nursery for a single egg. But before she lays that egg, the female mud dauber has one very dangerous job left to do. She has to go out and catch spiders. Not one or two, sometimes dozens. She hunts by scanning webs, dark corners, wood piles, cracks in walls, anywhere spiders like to hide. When she finds one, she grabs it and uses her stinger, but not the way you'd expect. That sting isn't meant to kill. It's meant to paralyze. Her venom shuts down the spider's nervous system just enough to leave it completely helpless, but still alive. That's not an accident. A dead spider would rot. A paralyzed one stays fresh, like a living, breathing meal kept in perfect storage for whatever hatches next. Different species of mud dauber go after different spiders. Black and yellow mud daubers, the kind most people run into around houses in the United States, tend to target crab spiders, orb weavers, and small jumping spiders. Blue mud daubers take it a huge step further. Their preferred target is one of the most feared spiders in North America, the black widow. To hunt one, a blue mud dauber will actually tap on the black widow's web, imitating the vibration of trapped prey to lure the spider out of hiding. The moment the black widow appears, the wasp strikes, stinging and paralyzing it before it even has a chance to defend itself. One venomous predator taken down by an insect most people are terrified of for all the wrong reasons. There's a third common type worth knowing about too, the organ pipe mud dauber, named for the shape of its nest. Several long parallel tubes built side by side that genuinely look like a miniature pipe organ mounted on a wall. This species tends to specialize in orb weaver spiders, the kind that build the big classic circular webs you see strung between branches or porch railings. Between all three types working the same neighborhood, black and yellow, blue, and organ pipe, a single backyard can end up with a surprisingly well-rounded spider control team, each one targeting a slightly different group of prey. Once she's caught her prey, she carries it, sometimes a spider nearly her own size, back to the nest and stuffs it inside one of those mud chambers. Then she does it again, and again. Some species pack as many as 25 to 30 spiders into a single chamber before finally laying one egg on top of the pile and sealing the whole thing shut with more mud. A single nest can contain 15 to 20 of these chambers. Do the math, and one mud dauber nest sitting quietly on the side of your house can represent somewhere around 500 spiders, captured, paralyzed, and sealed away, all so one wasp larva can grow. Inside each sealed chamber, the story keeps going long after the mother wasp has moved on to the next one. The egg hatches into a small, legless larva that starts feeding immediately, working through the pile of paralyzed spiders one at a time, always saving just enough to keep growing without running out too early. After a few weeks of eating, the larva spins itself a silk cocoon inside the mud chamber and enters a resting stage called a pupa. Depending on the timing, it might finish developing and emerge as an adult within weeks, or it might pause completely and spend the entire winter sealed inside that mud tube, waiting for warmer weather before chewing its way out as a fully formed adult wasp the following spring. And here's something that surprises people just as much as the spider hunting does. The adult wasps themselves don't actually eat any of those spiders. All that paralyzed prey is exclusively baby food for the larvae. Adult mud daubers feed almost entirely on flower nectar, visiting blossoms around your yard the same way a bee would, which means alongside their spider control work, they're also quietly contributing to pollination every time they stop for a meal. The intimidating hunter you're picturing spends a good part of its short adult life, usually somewhere between 3 and 6 weeks, simply drifting between flowers. So think about what's actually happening the moment you break one open with a stick. You're not just knocking down some dirt, you're cracking open a sealed chamber full of live, paralyzed spiders, some of which might still be capable of moving if the paralysis is starting to wear off, and in the case of a blue mud dauber's nest, some of those spiders could be black widows. That's the part almost nobody thinks about before they swing. Now, to be clear, this isn't really about your own safety from the wasp itself. That's actually the biggest myth around these insects, and it's worth clearing up completely. Despite the intimidating name and the wasp-like body, mud daubers are some of the calmest, least aggressive stinging insects you'll ever come across. They don't defend their nests the way hornets or yellowjackets do. There's no swarm response, no group of angry wasps chasing you across the yard. In fact, most people can walk right past an active mud dauber nest, or even brush against one accidentally, and nothing happens at all. Their venom exists for one purpose: taking down spiders, not defending territory. Stings on humans are rare enough that many pest professionals describe having almost no documented cases of aggressive attacks. If a sting does happen, it's almost always because the wasp got trapped, squeezed in clothing, or grabbed directly by hand. Even then, people usually describe it as mild, comparable to a small bee sting, some redness and light discomfort that fades within a few hours. Compare that to what actually happens with social wasps. A yellowjacket or paper wasp colony has dozens, sometimes hundreds of workers ready to defend a shared nest, and disturbing one of those can genuinely trigger a group response. Multiple stings, aggressive chasing, real danger for anyone with an allergy. A mud dauber nest has exactly one adult tending it at a time, and even she has almost no interest in you at all. There's simply no group behind her to call in. If you're trying to figure out whether something on your wall deserves caution, that single detail, one wasp working alone versus dozens flying in and out of the same hole, tells you almost everything you need to know before you even get close enough to see the shape of the nest itself. So the real reason not to break one of these open isn't fear of the wasp. It's what you're releasing and what you're destroying in the process. Every one of those sealed spiders inside represents a natural, completely free pest control system already working in your favor. If you've got mud daubers, especially blue mud daubers, quietly hunting near your home, that's fewer black widows hiding in your woodpile, your garage corners, or your porch furniture. Smash the nest out of fear, and you haven't made your yard safer. You've just released whatever was inside, disturbed a system that was working perfectly fine without you, and gotten absolutely nothing in return. There's also a reason to just leave old, abandoned nests alone completely. You can usually tell a nest is finished and empty because it has small round exit holes where the adult wasps have already chewed their way out and left. Even then, those old nests don't just sit there doing nothing. Blue mud daubers are notorious nest recyclers. Instead of building their own from scratch, they'll move into an abandoned black and yellow mud dauber nest, clean it out, and refill it with their own paralyzed spiders. That old lump of dried mud you were about to knock down might already be lined up to become another black widow trap for next season. Now, here's a part of the mud dauber story that has nothing to do with spiders or stings, and it's honestly one of the strangest things you'll hear about this insect. These wasps don't just build nests on walls and eaves. They'll build them almost anywhere that looks like a dark, protected tube, including places you'd never expect, like the narrow pitot tubes on the outside of an aircraft, the small sensors that measure airspeed. In more than one documented aviation incident, investigators found that a mud dauber had built its nest directly inside one of these tubes while a plane sat parked, blocking it completely. On at least 2 occasions, this has been linked to real, tragic plane crashes because a blocked pitot tube can feed pilots completely false airspeed readings. An insect smaller than your thumb, doing exactly what it's built to do, ended up playing a role in some of aviation's most sobering safety lessons, which is part of why airports and airlines now cover exposed tubes specifically to keep mud daubers out. That single fact tells you everything about how this creature operates. It's not aggressive. It's not hunting you. It's just relentlessly, mechanically good at finding a dark, tube-shaped space and turning it into a nursery, whether that space is a garden wall or the side of a jet. It's a strange reminder that even the calmest, most harmless-looking insect can still leave a mark on the world in the most unexpected place, simply by doing exactly what instinct built it to do. So if you find one of these nests around your own home, what should you actually do? First, take a breath. An active nest with a female still working on it is not a threat sitting there waiting to attack you. If it's somewhere that genuinely doesn't bother you, on a shed, deep in a garage corner, tucked under a rarely used eave, the simplest option is to just leave it alone and let it finish its job. If it's somewhere you really don't want it, like right next to a doorway or a window you open constantly, you don't need pesticide and you definitely don't need to smash it. Wait until evening when the wasp isn't active, or until winter when the nest is fully dormant, and gently scrape it off with a paint scraper or an old knife directly into a bag or a bucket. From there, you can relocate it somewhere out of the way, a shed, a fence line, anywhere you won't mind it finishing out its cycle undisturbed. That one small change in approach means those hundreds of paralyzed spiders inside stay exactly where they are instead of scattering loose around your yard. And it means the wasp itself survives to keep doing the one thing it's actually built for, quietly keeping the far more dangerous residents of your property in check. It's worth zooming out for a second too. A lot of pesticide gets sprayed every year on nests just like this one, out of fear built entirely on assumption, rather than anything the insect has actually done. Reaching for a can of insecticide against a solitary, nearly harmless hunter doesn't just waste money, it removes one of the few natural checks keeping venomous spider populations from building up unnoticed in the same dark corners you rarely check yourself. The mud dauber was never the problem, it was quietly working on one the whole time. So here's what this whole story really comes down to. That intimidating little mud structure stuck to your wall isn't a hive, isn't aggressive, and isn't something built to threaten you at all. It's a single mother's nursery, packed with paralyzed spiders, including some of the most feared ones in North America, all sealed away by an insect that almost never stings and spends its entire short life making your yard measurably safer than it would be without it.